All right, greetings everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Introspection Hour with Brian and Patrick, where we talk about thoughts, feelings, and emotions associated with everything that life has to throw at you. So my name is Brian.
Yo, I'm Patrick.
And all right, Patrick, so last week we talked about mental health issues, primarily depression and loneliness, right? So I know we kind of want to feed off of that previous episode and go on to today's episode because something actually relevant happened to me a couple of days ago. And lack of a better word, I felt like I was having a severe anxiety attack. And after reviewing and kind of seeing what my specific symptoms were, I wasn't actually going through an anxiety attack. I was actually going through a panic attack. And for those of you who are not familiar or don't know what the difference are between an anxiety attack and a panic attack, it's pretty much the same thing you're going to be experiencing, right? This shortness of breath feeling, this distress, this worry, some chest pain, dry mouth. You're gonna feel like chills, fever, nausea, headache, lightheadedness. But the one specific thing that is different from an anxiety attack and a panic attack is that feeling that you are going to die, right? And the other thing is a sense of like a detachment within the world. And I felt that the other day. And honestly, it was such a scary moment for me to experience because I have never experienced anything like that before. And I'm just curious, like, we've all experienced anxiety before, right? Like, have you ever experienced anxiety to that level?
I gotta say, I've never felt it to that level, especially in the way that you experienced it, which is huge to just be able to just even share it with us, right? So appreciate you always coming forward and sharing how you feel and how you went through that. But I gotta say, I'm gonna kind of lean on you on this one. I don't really know what a panic attack feels like. I haven't gone through it. So it's a little bit, kind of different for me.
Okay. So I'm glad to explain actually what happened. So it was Friday night, right? And last week I was already kind of experiencing this like negativity just from COVID, right? Just that sense of like nothing's gonna get better, nothing's gonna change. We're just like it's hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel. You know what I mean? And I just felt so overwhelmed with the fact that I just feel like, life is not meant to be lived this way. We're just meant to be in our own bubble, in our own isolation. And it's hard to just be, away from our friends, our loved ones, just interacting with other people. And so Friday, I was just having another bad day. And I decided, or like, how we all drink alcohol to kind of make ourselves feel better. I decided, like, let me try and go to a pot shop to just kind of help relieve some stress, right? Kind of help maybe take my mind away from all of this negativity with COVID. And so I went home, made sure that I just got some pizza, nothing fancy, got home, started watching some mild television, okay? I ingested about 20 milligrams, and I'm not too sure how much that is in comparison as far as, like, say, if you smoke it or I decided to take chocolate. After about half an hour, I started feeling like palpitations, which is like my heart beating, and I started feeling like I couldn't breathe.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So initially, I called one of my good friends and I was like, hey, like, can you please just talk to me? I'm having a little bit of a freak out. I'm just help calm me down. Let me know. Tell me that everything is going to be okay. And she did that, and I kind of knew what was still going on. I'm like, okay, let me just not bother you. Like, I'm sorry I'm taking up your Friday. I think I'm good now. I'm fine. And so I went back to my normal routine, started watching TV. The minute I sat down, I just felt that feeling like I can't breathe again, right? I just started freaking out, and I don't know what it was. So I decided, I'm just going to shut everything out. And it was like 10:30 on a Friday, so it's still pretty early. What ended up happening was I stayed up a little bit longer just to watch basketball highlights because it was like a week before the playoffs. And at some point, like I just started really, really lightheaded. My fingers started to get really, really numb. And went all the way down to like my legs and my toes. And I just felt like I couldn't move. You know what I mean? And it's such a scary feeling to experience that if you've never experienced that before. And then all of a sudden I felt like I couldn't breathe. It felt like someone was sitting on my chest and I was experiencing symptoms of a heart attack or maybe a stroke. And so I started calling all the people that are local to me. Like I started calling Andrea, for example, because she lives nearby. I called like my good friend Meg, Eddie. There's all of these people who I would consider like, if I had to call them, that hopefully they would be there to support me. Granted, it was like 12 o'clock in the morning. I would imagine no one's going to pick up with either everyone's sleeping or whatever, right? I just started freaking out some more. I'm like, oh my god, I think I'm gonna die. So I called my mom. I mean, this is one thing, is never call either like a family member, because it's can you imagine? It's just imagine, your child calling you, like once she hits a certain age, she calls you like, hey dad, I think I'm gonna die. Like, what is your immediate response to that? You know what I mean? Like, what are you supposed to do? You are 1,000 miles away from your daughter, and you can't really physically be there to help comfort them. So what is it that you do? So I called my mom, explained the situation, like, Mom, I can't breathe, I don't know what to do. And I decided to call all the people who were local to me. It's just like, I need to like have someone just be physically there to support me. And one of the scariest things that happened in my mind was like realizing that, holy crap, I might die, and I might die alone. And that was one of the most scariest feelings that I can say is that is really eye-opening for me, actually.
Yeah.
When you think about that situation, is that, I think most of us are afraid of death, right? We're all afraid of, at least for me, I'm afraid of dying. But the fact that I was in my apartment by myself with no one around me at 12 o'clock in the morning, I might die alone. And that just overwhelmed me even more, to the point where I had to call 911 and end up in the hospital. So how are you doing?
Let's break it down for a couple of things, right? And the experience that you've had, and I think there's a couple of things that are important to point out. You went through what is essentially your virtual and immediately accessible support system that you have. Basically people you could call. It did end up with your mom, and so you kind of ran down your list. So after each one, you're kind of getting a little bit disappointed, right? And you're just kind of, the negativity is building. So I think what we should realize is your whole episode is basically this spiral. You just kept kind of going down, 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 and down. So to like focus on one thing and say, oh, here's how you fix it, or anything like that, I think that is besides the point. Although the one minor thing is, I'll say, whatever you ingested, you've done this test before, so stop doing that. At least for your body, it doesn't work. It's better if you had a beer or something like that, maybe. So I think there's elements of this that we should definitely unpack. The first is just even how you're dealing with the whole COVID situation, because this has been going on for a little while. And I think we should definitely take a look at understanding that a little bit more. Yeah, so the other part that I think we should really do is for today and on this podcast is to unpack what people can actually do if your support system starts to fail around you, because that's a feeling in and of itself. That's a whole nother experience, right? Like you're calling people. I think I got a missed call from you that day too, and I'm 3 hours ahead on the East Coast, so it was just I put my phone on silent, and so I think those are some things that we should unpack. But let me ask you though, you've had a little bit of time, and it's not like to say that you're over it. So kind of where are you at now? So that was kind of what happened it was Friday, you said. So where are you at now?
As far as like how am I physically doing, or mentally,
how
or
are you
what
feeling?
do you mean? Like, what did I learn from it?
Yeah, or just even being able to reflect on it a little bit. Like, how are you feeling right now? How are you? Are you dealing with it? Do you feel like you dealt with it, or is it just sticking with you and you're just going through the motions, on a day-to-day basis?
Honestly, I feel like I'm okay now. It was one of those moments where, like, I think, not to say everyone should experience so that they know what it feels like, but it's kind of like when I went through that ordeal and I was in the hospital and I was just trying to recover and recuperate, just, again, trying to experience everything. I had a lot of realizations, actually, as far as like some of the things that I know. I know we're going to talk about this later on. Talking about like what is important in life, what matters in life, right? And one of my key takeaways from all of this is that it's the people around you, like relationships, that are actually really, really important, particularly when you are dealing, let's say, with end stage life, right? No one ever says, oh, I wish I should have accepted that job, or I wish I should have done, well, I guess people say, I wish I should have done more with life, but never I should have done less with life. You know what I mean? And for me, I realized is that it's important whenever you're experiencing some catastrophic physical ailment. It's the people that support you, the people who are there by your side, is what really helps someone get through a tough situation, right? Luckily for me, I had the audacity to call my boss, who drove about 45 minutes, at 1 o'clock in the morning, to actually come by and check up on me to make sure that I was okay. Because actually, she was my last resort that I had called in terms of who else can I reach out locally. And I'm not gonna lie, the minute she showed up and just gave me a light little embrace, told me everything's gonna be okay, that made a lot of things go away. I think one of the hardest things for a lot of people is when we're in a situation where we're not thinking straight, right? We're anxious, we're depressed, we're just having this freak out moment. One of the things that at least I took away from all of this is that knowing that I mattered to at least some people. Right? Because sometimes, we go through all of the crap that life is just throwing at us all the time. And sometimes it does become overwhelming. And honestly, sometimes we just want to feel like, after all that's been said and done, we matter to some people. You know what I mean?
The power of touch at the right moment, not like creepy touch, but the power of touch at the right moment is so impactful. It's so positive. And I think that's something that we must always remember. So that actually describes a lot. That actually helps us understand a lot, because if you didn't have that and you just got released because your heart rate went down and physically you were fine, and the hospital just released you, we'd be in a whole different discussion point right now, because you would still feel the way you did before you got that hug, before you got that embrace, before you felt like someone cared about you, right? And it kind of goes into what we talked about last week, where if you're in your head and there's an echo chamber of you not being good enough and someone else says something different, like, to break out of it is really what it was that you were alone the whole time and you felt the world coming in on you. And that touch just broke that cycle, whatever it was. So I think that just that does that. Usually, like, panic attack, as far as I understand, I've never gone through it, but as far as I understand it, you're really hoping someone is around you that knows how to bring you back. Like you said, you don't feel like you're there, so you're hoping someone's there to bring you back. And I think that's why it is so important to maintain those relationships, as you pointed out. People have various thoughts when they're end of life, and you kind of think about those things. But I think for the most part, if we can conclude at least this portion of, when you're going through that, you still did the good things, which is you went through your call list, you went through the people, and then you still had to, at the last resort, some people come to you and help you out and get you back to reality. At the same time, you sought medical help, which there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it's just beyond our care. So those are really good positive things. It didn't seem like it while you're going through it, but at least hearing it from a third party, kind of, you telling me the story, those are still that checklist, right? That we would want people to exercise whenever they're going through this. Not saying go to the urgent care or ER room every time you have a panic attack, but now you might look up, how do you walk yourself down, how to get yourself back grounded, or that type of thing. I think the bigger discussion for us today is to really talk about and unpack this blaming it on COVID, right? So I'm gonna kind of hit you a little bit hard while you're down, I'm just gonna hit you hard, right? I think COVID is an excuse that people say to justify multiple things that they're dealing with internally. So I think there's still things that you need to deal with. And I'm saying this as a friend, right? I'm not saying this as if like I understand and I know, but if anyone around us, and especially you, from me to you, I would say this, which is, if you assume COVID's going to go away within like a year or even a couple months, you need to get that out of your head. So if you know you're in it for the long haul, what are we going to change now? And so even my wife and I, we talked about this. We're like, hey, this isn't letting up. This is getting worse. And who knows what's going to happen next. So we said, even with our second baby coming, we're going to have to assume 2 years of no larger family, no family coming in. You know, because there's another layer of we have a baby. You don't really want too many people around the baby. So you're controlling. And then we're controlling who comes and who goes. And then there's a lot of prep that needs to happen, the execution and all that. And then how are we going to deliver the baby? So there's so many things going through our mind. The last thing we need to worry about is other people coming to us. In fact, having no people come is a little bit easier in a sense, right? Like we can control what my wife and I worry about. But I think it's worth unpacking a little bit from you. How much of COVID or how much of what you're experiencing now do you feel like is a result of COVID specific to you? Forget about everyone else, just on you. Like, what do you think? Is it all of it? Is it some of it?
I'm gonna say a good percentage, like 80%. Okay, obviously I still have some issue that I'm dealing with, right? It's primarily sort of like just the self, for example. But one of the things is like the things that bring us joy, right? What things that make me happy? I like playing basketball. I like traveling. I like going out to restaurants. I like to just explore, right? Whether it's through meetup events, going through these different activities, you know. Just like different meetup events have certain activities. Let's say there's it's been so long that I don't even remember anymore. But like board game nights, for example, right? Or a group organization event or a volunteering event or just something related where it involves other people. And one of the biggest things actually is the fact that I have nothing to look forward to right now, right? Every day is basically the same routine thing, day in, day out. Weekend, we go hiking, okay, whoop-de-doo. But it's like, again, you hit Monday, you go back to work. There's nothing to really look forward to. And that's one of my biggest qualms with what I'm going through in my own personal life is the fact that like life is just mundane, it's repetitive, especially now with COVID, right? And so I told you about the 20% that I still have issues with. And the other biggest issue where it's like I feel like there's such a big need to succeed for some reason, right? And I know we've talked about this before with career changing, is that I put this pressure on myself where it's like if I'm not hustling, if I'm not continuously trying to do something to make it big, then I'm not doing anything. Like I'm just wasting my life. And that's the other thing where it's like I just feel like I have so much pressure to succeed for myself and I have no idea why.
And I think what this leads to, if we were to put a word on it, is this insular environment that creates an environment of loneliness, right? And being lonely. And we talked about that last week, where, you know, being alone is not the equivalent of being lonely. And when you're being lonely or when you feel lonely, it's a byproduct of your environment and what you do and all the things that you just talked about. So I think there's a misconception that I've heard you say a couple of times that I have a different perspective, which is, you know, we're human, we need to be social, we need to, you know, that's how we find joy and happiness. And I get my, you know, I'm happy when I'm meeting other people, and that is all true. I'm not saying you're lying or you're saying something incorrect. It is true, but it isn't the only option. And so, at least the way you've described it to me, it seems like you're treating it as if that's the only path to happiness that you have, which gave you that hope. And that was always your hope. That was always your positive drive, so to speak. So for me, my perspective is that can't be the case, because I know a lot of monks that are very happy with their lives. They have some social interaction, but by and large, 90% of the day is individual, or, you know, and they have a different sense of hope, obviously with faith and everything. There's others who are accepting of living their life as a single person, you know, not feeling societal pressure for marriage or, you know, different levels of success and mansions and stuff. That they're just happy being single. So what I would challenge a little bit, and feel free to kind of disagree with me, but I think you're limiting yourself by you've defined happiness for what you had, let's say pre-COVID. And because you can't get that, you're like, I can't get happy, or I'm not feeling happiness. I don't feel true happiness, or I won't ever get that back, or until COVID goes away, I won't be able to be happy, which is like a year, 2 years, a month, whatever it is. And that I think is why you're having trouble finding other outlets, other avenues of happiness, of hope. Because that happiness is really a translation of hope, where you had something positive, some feeling that you were getting drawn to. So I guess let me ask you, like, have you found, it's been about 5-6 months that we've been somewhat locked down in one way or another, dealing with COVID on a regular basis and wearing masks and everything like that. Have you found anything else that makes you happy that wasn't there before?
To be honest, not really. Like I guess you could say I'm trying to do things that are taking the time to kind of keep me busy, right? I'm trying to do things that keep me busy. So in this case, like making videos, making YouTube, starting a new podcast, for example. Like for me, I like starting projects. It makes me feel like I'm doing something meaningful in my life. And that's one thing actually that I want to reiterate regarding COVID, pre-COVID, like emotion, is that I feel like life is meaningless if I'm not doing something different.
Yeah, you're having trouble being still.
Yeah,
right?
and I think this is a big problem. Like I come to you all the time, like, hey, Mud, how can I fix this? Because I think a lot of people go through this, and that's why we have so many workaholics these days. Because if they're not doing something quote productive, then what are they doing with their life, right?
I agreed, and I'll share two aspects of this. One is from a very kind of religious perspective, which is through prayer, meditation, even some aspects of yoga, meditation type of thing. You find they talk about finding Zen, or finding your inner peace. All of that is actually being comfortable and being happy, being still. Prayer, deep prayer, is really not even saying and reciting, let's say, like rosary beads if you're Catholic. It's actually just staying still and trying to be open for God to move your heart in some way or another. And so people will go through like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Some of the more kind of devout can do like an hour of just sitting there, almost emptying your entire head and being happy, right? Being happy, being still. On the flip side, on a very kind of practical, pragmatic, secular way, I'm going to refer to Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary. I agree with him a lot of the time, most of the time. But he says this, and it's echoed by a lot of people. The most valuable thing that you have is time. And time shouldn't always be to be productive. Time actually has to be allocated to help you find happiness in your life. So he talks about this in an interesting way, which is he allocates time for himself to cook because that makes him happy, to play music just to play music. Doesn't have to get better, doesn't have to record. Maybe he'll record. He just plays music, right? And he does things for himself that make him happy, which is something that is very interesting in a sense of you have this person who's a really rich guy, can have anyone and everything around him, and he chooses to allocate his time so that he can have his own happiness time, things that bring him joy, things that bring him happiness. So if we delve into that a little bit, he's not the only one that says this. Like Mark Cuban has said it, others have said it. The ones that you think are so busy that all they do is work because that's all you see them doing, right? They're actually allocating different parts of their day for the things that make them happy. And that's also where you get creative. You don't get creative just by daydreaming. You get creative by giving your mind and body time to relax, time to reset, time to be able to change things up and look at something different. Then the real question, comes down to the time that you're allocating. How much of that time is spent on things that you think you need to succeed or be productive or have value? Break down your time allocation, for example.
I mean, I don't really have a specific time, like I'm going to spend 1 hour doing this, I'm going to spend 2 hours doing that. But obviously, we've had this discussion before, there's off camera, where it's like, how can we better have self-reflection time or like me time, right? And let's say, because my work schedule varies, it's flexible. I like to come home, have lunch, watch an episode of, or just watch TV for like half an hour, just to kind of while I'm eating something and watching something at the same time. Afterwards, I get to decide, all right, what am I going to do now? And it's hard for me to really focus on one specific task because sometimes like, I want to go finish some work, or I want to do something else, or it's really hard to just think every day. It's kind of something different. But I am the type of person where I get most of my work done at night. Like anywhere from like 7 or 8 o'clock to like 11 or 12 is when I call it productivity time, where I start cranking out my videos, I start talking on my videos, I start photo editing, video editing, all of that stuff. So anywhere between 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock, it's kind of like, you could call it me time, where either I'm like playing a little bit of video games, or I'm just watching basketball, for example, I'm watching TV, or I'm just out at the park just trying to get some type of physical activity done. And so that's how I kind of allocate my time.
So in that sense, I think what's important is that everyone has to figure out when they're the most productive and do the things that require you to be the most productive. So I know in the morning, after I've had my coffee, after I've fed my daughter, I can go upstairs, crank out almost everything I need to do in about 4 to 5 hours, right? Once it gets past over the afternoon, I'm not, my brain slows down. I can be on conference calls, I can be attentive, but I'm just not in a writing mood, for example. So if I need to write a report or a memo, I do it in the morning. So when you're productive. That's good. The other times when you don't have to be productive and it's not your peak production time, I think that's the challenge of like finding what are some other things that bring you happiness? And this is, I think, what we would say to our audience here is that you need to, if you can't do everything that made you happy before COVID happened, then this is another time for exploration. Albeit it's an individual exploration usually, unless you're at home and your home life is crazy because of kids or whatever. But for the most part, like, you got to look at it from outcomes. You're pretty good. You got pretty good at cooking, right? And so do you want to go and make something that you never made, or bake something, or anything you wanted to try, or anything you want to just improve more on an outcome basis, more on I really just want to try that just to see what it is. And I know you do this a lot for a lot of outdoor activities. The one thing, knowing you haven't done is, what can you do in that apartment of yours? And it seems small, but it's actually really big. You can try cooking, you can try perfecting something. I'll use Gordon Ramsay as an example. Everyone thinks like because once you get all these good equipment, you can be a really great chef. His risotto, he got on just a single electric burner, and every day he went buying the ingredients over and over and over again until he figured out how he makes the risotto perfect, right? So you can perfect something. And he did it because of his talent and his skill and his passion for cooking. But I use that as an example for you, where you've actually gotten pretty good at your cooking. So if that's the case, then do you want to even get better? Or do you want to try something that you haven't? Or is there something that you just want to keep doing just to do because it brings you joy, it brings you happiness, right? Like, you can fail at it and it still makes you happy. That's what you need to find. What can you do by yourself that even though you fail, it still makes you happy? Or you can screw up, or it's not that big of a deal if you fail. Like, does anything come to mind about those type of activities?
Making videos, surprisingly, it's because it allows me to share my story, right? Or provide insight to like, this is what I'm experiencing, perhaps, by analyzing and reflecting on the things that I'm going through and creating a video of it in hopes of trying to help people also like, that's an interesting point. I never would have seen it that way. That's something that I really enjoy doing. And it's funny you bring this up. So today I was just driving and I was thinking like, what else could I do? Not sure if this is a good idea or not. You could let me know right here, right now, is storytelling for kids. And I have no idea where I got this idea from, where I'm like, you know what? I kind of feel like going to a library, getting like one of those Dr. Seuss books and just reading to kids. And this is kind of like, do you remember those days back when you go to the library, you have an individual reader reading a children's book, and there are 10, 15 kids around, they'll read a book and they'll show the book like this. I kind of want to do that for YouTube, just to kind of, again, because I like making videos. Surprisingly, I like talking.
So it's a great idea. And this is what I mean. You do it with no expectation, no, you can fail at it, but it still just brings you happiness, right? And it's a variation of what you're doing, what we're doing now, like, podcasts and just trying to get more people to subscribe. So make sure you subscribe. But I think if you were to perhaps record 1 or 2 videos, 1 or 2 stories of doing that, right? Get a couple books from the library and then share it with your building people. And hey, if you have kids and they want to try I know they're on video a lot with school, but if you just want them to just hear and talk with me about the story, I don't really have a lot of experience, but I just have a passion that I just want these kids to experience something positive. You might get 2 or 3 families that say, hey, let's schedule a time, read to our kids. And
it's not even about actually having them in person, actually. It's just, let's say, you go to like what you said, go to a library, grab the Cat in a Hat book and just reading it. And at the end, just kind of give an explanation, like a summary and an interpretation of all the event that happened and like, how could you learn from that event type of thing, So they don't have to necessarily be there in person, but I would read it on a YouTube on my video camera and I just upload it and just kind of like, have a little, what's the guy who grew up with? Fred Rogers, Dr. Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? Something like that, just to kind of provide some positive influence. Because I realize is that the one thing that actually does feel good is being able to contribute yourself to somebody else, like contributing to something greater than yourself. You know what I mean?
I'll push back on that because you're not getting the human interaction you're thriving, you're wanting right now. You're just doing this. If that was good enough, if that feeling was good enough, just putting it out there, the videos that you do for us and even your other project, like that would be enough, but it isn't. You're looking for this interaction, whether it be children, whether it be adults, or whether it be so-and-so. It doesn't really matter. So you're missing some of that. So I would say it probably wouldn't, I won't discourage you too much, but by the way, kids don't really want an explanation. They just want you to read the story in a funny voice.
That's fine. I can do that too.
Yeah, and they don't really think through, unless except they're like really intellectual head kind of space. They don't really think through the stories. They just kind of live in the moment and throw themselves into the story and just love it, right? And so that's what generally kids are doing. Kids are experiencing when they're like first grade, second grade, third grade, whatever. So if you want to do a discussion, if you want to talk about it, that's more of a book club. And you could maybe do that, and virtual book clubs are probably still easy enough. This is where I would say try something completely different. No video, no nothing. Or if you want to do that, you have to force some interaction if it's video related, just for you personally, right? And so for you, I would say, if you're going to do anything with the video, what can you do that's personal reaction, not interaction, personal interaction? Is it a virtual book club? Is it just even regular video chats or something like that? You're talking about something, discussing a topic. That might be all you need. 30 minutes on video talking about a topic with 2 or 3 other people. After the first 2, it actually is more than enough time. 30 minutes. You just kind of, and then change it up. If you're out there wanting to help people, find something that isn't video related and go and try it. There's nothing that you can. Food banks still work out. My wife and I, we did this thing when COVID was getting really, peaked in Maryland. They had this contactless food delivery. So we were the drivers. You could either help pack food or you could drive, and they load up your trunk and then you just drop it off at someone's doorstep. And we felt like we were giving back and contributing. And it was contactless. We felt safe doing it, and that felt good enough, right? It was just something we did on a Friday. No matter what we had scheduled, we prioritized that. It had nothing to do with anything else in our lives except we wanted to help people. So I'm saying, I think you need to keep pushing yourself way beyond your comfort. So everything that made you happy, go to a different lane. Like literally switch lanes so that you find another lane that makes you happy. And I have done this a couple of different times, but in my life, and I will say, finding comfort in being still, you change your view on what brings you happy, but more importantly, take control of your time. That was Kevin O'Leary's message. He said, control your time. You might not be able to control your entire day. He got to a point where he controls his entire day, so he gets to choose how he allocates his time. But what I think he was trying to even further say is, whatever time you can control it for the better for you. That includes activities and things that you should do which are not money making, which are not productive, which are not anything more than just pure joy in your life. You're happy about it. You're happy you get to do it, right? Like there's no immediate outcome. Knitting, some people like knitting just because after that long process of time by themselves just knitting, they make something. And that's what they're working towards. That individual time looking forward to a finished blanket for whoever, make a blanket and send it off or give it to a person that's on the street when it gets cold, right? Like my grandma used to knit me a blanket. It was one of my most favorite blankets that I had because I knew the amount of time it took her. And so there's a lot of feeling, a lot of thought, a lot of emotion that went into it. But it really goes to show everyone needs to find a lot of different things that makes them happy or find joy in the things that they're doing. In your case, I would say you need to explore things that you've never done before for no other reason than you just want to try it out and you want to see if this makes you happy. If you have a goal of helping others, you need to do things that actually, like, I think you need to physically do something, Brian. Okay, so I've gone on a rant, but I'll say this one more for a lot of people listening. Like, Brian's always told me he's wanted to help people and do something, and even the videos, and it's a really good kind of noble notion on this. Brian, the one thing that you keep avoiding is actually helping people directly.
I know, gosh darn it, I know.
Right?
My job does that. Does that count?
That counts. But you don't, and maybe that's not enough for you. So if that's not enough for you, find something that's directly benefiting someone else. And it doesn't have to be huge, right? But like I said, we never even knew who these families were. But we just hope that the help we did to deliver the food got them through that week, right? Whatever was a situation for their family or if they were by themselves. We don't know who these people are, but we just always said a prayer with them, with the box, and we said, or the bag, and we said, I hope this keeps you fed for the next week and you and your family, and you survive out of this. And that was more than enough to fuel us, to feel like we're doing something besides being privileged, right? Because there's so many people suffering, and we're looking at it. So that was important to us, but at some point, man, you just got to kind of do it. If you don't want to do it for other people, do it for yourself. Find something, do it. I've been going on for a little bit, but like What are you feeling? What are you thinking? Like how high is your BS meter on me?
For your BS meter, okay. I mean, a lot of what you say does make a lot of sense. Like it really does. Is being able to find happiness within your own self. And I mean, unfortunately for me, I mean, this is not me trying to make excuses, but for me, like I love playing basketball, for example, right? Like that's one of the things where I could just, no matter what mood I'm in, if I'm playing basketball with like just people, I feel a lot better because a lot of it's the exercise. Two, I mean, I don't know if you believe in this or not, but like, hormones plays a big difference. Like if I haven't been getting a lot of exercise lately. And as a result, all the serotonin and the epinephrine and all of those endorphins that helps, enhance mood is just it's not in me anymore, right? And so as a result, I'm just kind of just, wasting away, like lack of a better word, I'm wasting away. So I miss that exercising activity. I miss going out and doing stuff that, I mean, you could say it's just it's like an exercise high, right? That's what I'm essentially doing those activities for. And that's why on a weekend, when I go hiking, for example, I feel so much better. I feel accomplished. I feel like I did something because one, I summited a mountain, for example. Two, it's just I'm actually in nature. Like we all know that, what's it called? Forest bathing or whatever you want to call it. It has some positive effects in our emotional and mental moods. So, but as far as trying to learn something new, like I always want to learn, like I have a piano right here that I just never practice because a lot of it you could say is I'm just not good at it, right? And I want to try and learn how to play, like say a piano piece from Final Fantasy, but it's hard. I'm not that good at it. So I know I should practice more because that's one thing, going back to what you're saying, doing something that doesn't have any specific outcome. Playing the piano is one of the things where like I wish I was good at it because I would just play that when I'd be in a really foul mood,
But this is something that like we sort of talked about. You got to be realistic with those milestones I mentioned, right? So if you want to play the Final Fantasy piece, like that's probably like, let's say a level 8 difficulty or something like that. Can you play a level 2 or a level 4 difficulty without any stopping or really fluidly? Like, have you perfected it? Have you mastered it? If the answer is no, then you got to work up to it. So
yeah,
this is where having a goal is fine, but if you keep practicing just that piece, you're not going to get it because that piece incorporates techniques from other pieces. You know what I mean? Like music is a composition from multiple different types of pieces. So there's different techniques in how you play the piano. Certain pieces accentuate those techniques. So this musical piece really makes you do the chords. This musical piece, really makes you do the high notes. The musical score for Final Fantasy might incorporate 5 of those techniques, but you might not know any of those techniques or even proficiently enough to actually play the piece. So it's just like cooking. Can you get a really good tasting dish if you don't cut your food, always the same? No, you have to master the basics. If you have different sized pieces of onions cut, like the really pro chefs will say that's not good enough. And okay, then you need to kind of really get good at it. So I would say this is where it's important to, again, you're putting so much pressure because you're like, I can't play this really awesome piece that I really love the music. Right? I really love this music, but I can't play the piece. That's okay. I really love Mariah Carey songs. I can't sing like her, but I still belt my heart out, right?
That's right.
So there's got to be that element of just fun. I would also say exercise. Brian's always been the one that exercises amongst all of us, and like he's incredibly fit, or I guess he used to be because he's not getting enough exercise right now. I'll call you out. You're kind of lazy. You're kind of copping out to it. You're limiting to yourself that you can't do the things that you physically used to do, and so you're just not going to do anything, right? And this is that quitting mentality. And it's the same, and I recognize it because I do this all the time. I'm too busy. My back started hurting. I had a really big day, and so like I don't have any energy. You get every other excuse. I don't have a gym. I can't go to the gym. So where am I going to get weights? I can't do this. I even reached out to you. What can I do at home? And you told me a couple of things, right? And then here you are telling me you're not exercising because you're at home. Like, you you know, do you take the elevator or the stairs? You know, you're probably taking
Always
the
the stairs.
elevator. Always the stairs.
Always the stairs. So actually going back to that, it's the environment, you know? Like what you know what they say, once the hardest part is getting out of your house, but once you're in the gym, you'll do the deed, right? And for me, it's like, you know, here it's like it's just not a very exercise environment. And I know I'm giving excuses. This is totally legit, but it's like, yeah, you're right. I don't feel motivated because I just feel like there's nothing. Like there's only so many push-ups you can do. There's only like squats you can do before like, oh my God, I'm so bored. You know, I'm just doing the same thing every single day. Like I need some variety, you know? So.
And whether it's, you know, push-ups or yoga or, I gotta say, out of all this, out of this entire, I'm not sure how long we've been talking, maybe like, you know, 40 minutes or maybe longer, but dude, just do some yoga. Calm yourself down. Like I like yoga, and full disclosure, I started yoga because there were really, really beautiful women that were going to yoga and they invited me. So I'm like, sure, I'll go in the back and just, you know, I was like, wow, yoga. Later on, it turns out my body actually could use it a little bit. And so I've tried to do like 15 minutes in the morning, sunrise yoga, or, you know, wake up morning yoga, that type of thing. Just wake your body up. A lot of people, if nothing else, during this time and you're worried about so many things, you know, crashing down on you, and you feel like even your small space is not big enough, you have to carve out a personal space. And we do this in prayer, whether it's yoga or something. There's got to be a place in your room, in your house, that in your apartment, that is pristine. It's this place you can escape to without physically going. So like you almost have to take your mind out of that room and let yourself go. And that's kind of what a lot of the different kind of meditation, like emptying your mind. But you got to treat that space like you're never going to put any of your dirty clothes. You're not going to use it for anything else. No storage, no nothing, no matter how tight the space gets. So it's a chair, it's a comfortable chair. It's just on the ground, a little bit of, you know, a mat or something. We, in praying, it's like a prayer corner. And that prayer corner is, once you set it up and it makes you feel comfortable and brings you like peace, you don't let anything happen to it, right? You protect it. And then every time you go there, it's as if you're stepping into a completely different place. And it's all in the head. But it works, by God. Like that. So I've done that every now and then, you know, you need a place where you can center yourself. And then later, you might be able to do it anywhere, right? You'll be in the car, you'll be at your desk, you just close your eyes and you take a moment. But I think a lot of people need to get comfortable being alone so that they don't fall into depths of despair and loneliness. But really, being alone is not that big of a deal. It's not that bad. We just need to break out of our shell and be a little bit more creative. And so every effort that you did to meet people, Brian, like channel that energy into meeting yourself in different situations, different environments within what you can control. So channel that energy and just really find ways that you can escape in your head so that you can find peace and find happiness. And that's some of the crazy advice that you'll get on the Introspection Hour with Brian and Patrick. And so we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening, guys.